I'm Heather.
And I'm Desiree.
And you're listening to
the Perpetually Overdue Podcast. Hey friends, and welcome to another episode of the Perpetually Overdue Podcast. I'm Desiree.
I'm Heather.
And this week, we are going to get into the feels a little bit. We're going to give some big sis advice to our younger selves.
Ooh.
So really, we just kind of are going to reflect on things that obviously hindsight's 2020. When we get older, we see things that in part we know growing up, it's part of the process to feel things, experience things, even the bad things. But there are some things that would have been nice if someone sat us down and gave us just some loving care and advice on how to approach life onto adulthood and all that. And a lot of it for me is very internalized too. Just even changing maybe a lot of my thinking growing up could have been nice in the sense of maybe I wouldn't need as much therapy today.
Girl, here's the thing though, because I distinctly remember being told by people what I should not be doing in certain areas. And this is why I think even more so it's like poignant to say that it's us speaking to our younger selves, because had I been able to go into a time machine and go back to my younger self and tell her, girl, I think I would have listened to myself. I already know I didn't listen to plenty of good advice when I was younger because I wanted to do what I wanted to do.
It's the nature of being youthful.
Exactly. I had to hit my head up against that wall a couple times, even though I had people telling me, hey, that hurts. Hey, you might not want to do that. You included.
Yeah.
I
played that role for other people way too much, which at the end also wasn't beneficial to my mental health. So that's one thing I would probably tell myself, butt the fuck out and let people do what they're going to do because they're going to do it anyway.
Yeah, I can't say the person's name, but I learned that lesson with a girl who we used to both be friends with. And did exactly what I used to do, which is choose a guy over your friends. And then I was like, I can't. Mostly because this person would nod in my face, like, totally. But then her actions would contradict that.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, she did what she wanted to do. Yeah. And in hindsight, myself, I will say that I don't think it was necessary to cut her off. I think I was being a little over emotional about that because she wasn't a bad person. And then she ended up marrying that person. So good for her. You know what I mean? It's just, yeah. And as I got older, I did learn to separate my feelings a little bit more. I had a friend who was engaged to somebody that I didn't really like as a person, didn't think that they were an honest person. Thank goodness they didn't end up getting married to them, but they were a good enough friend to me at that time that they wanted me to be a part of their wedding. And I was like, you know what? She knows how I feel about this person. I'm going to stand up there. I'm going to be with my friend. That was a huge growth moment for me to realize, like, it's not about agreeing all the time. You know, if they love each other and she wants to make this decision, go right ahead. That doesn't mean that our friendship is effectively over now. But yeah, so when you're younger, your emotions are like
heightened by 1,000. My goodness. So this is going to be interesting, but also I think a little fun, maybe even emotional. Who knows? We'll see what happens. We have some advice that we would like to give our younger selves. And again, just looking back and seeing now as we are late 30s, early 40s, it's interesting just looking back and going, what could have been different if... And in a healthy way, not in a navel-gazing kind of way, but more kind of like healthy perspective kind of a deal.
I like that. I like that. Yeah, I think it's not so much focusing, hyper fixating, I would say, on mistakes, but more of the gentle, loving advice that we would have given ourselves that mostly has to do with the way that we see ourselves, the way that we care for ourselves, how we love ourselves,
and
more
others
than anything
sometimes.
else.
Yeah.
And others, and others as well.
So, all right, I'll start. I would say I have a little list. And the first on that list, a little generic. Obviously, there's more to it than that. But in regards to boosting self esteem. And so, really, I would come back to my younger self and try to help her really understand the true meaning between loving yourself and feeling confident, not in the superficial aspect, but being confident in who you are in that moment and just unapologetically being yourself in that sense and having the self esteem to stand in whatever your truth is and owning it, because I lived constantly and perpetually in fear of just like being wrong, saying the wrong thing, coming off a certain way. I was so insecure 100,000% of the time. And so I second guessed everything. I second guessed everything I did. I second guessed everything I said. I didn't trust myself at all. At all. I mean, even something as simple as kissing a boy. I never enjoyed when I was younger kissing because I would then go into a spiral. Did I do it right? Did I do it wrong? What did they think? Did I do? Yeah. When I say I second guessed everything about myself, I literally mean everything. And I lived in that constant state of anxiety. And so I would absolutely love to try to sit with my younger self and try to help her own herself more of what she feels and thinks in that moment, and not feel like she was constantly in need of pleasing people.
That's really good. I'll piggyback off of that one because I think self-esteem is a huge struggle our whole lives, really, but especially when we're younger, adolescent, teenage years, early adulthood. One thing that I really regret not doing when I was younger, and I would go back and I would talk to my younger self about, is embracing my culture.
Ooh.
And not being so quick to assimilate and not being so quick to be proud to be Americanized. That's really difficult because that is kind of the message that we get from society, that you will do much better in life. You will be much happier if you assimilate yourself to the American culture. And unfortunately, assimilation means you have to speak English. You have to be proud to be an American. You have to not play your music or listen to your shows, or and those are extreme examples, but it's these little microaggressions of wanting to fit in, even just like the clothing that you wear, the type of hairstyles.
You push down your own culture so that what comes forth in every area feels, I am an American.
Yeah, and I've never been insanely patriotic in my life, but I did feel pressured, especially when it came to beauty standards. Being on the darker side, not blonde, not blue-eyed, not the Aryan dream, and being predominantly attracted to white boys. And then even within Hispanic culture, you have different shades. So a lot of the guys that I was seeing and that were around me were on the fairer side. Definitely have been attracted to Black men. That's not in question. But a lot of the times I felt more inadequate when it came to my attraction to white men or light-skinned men because I wasn't white. And I even had an instance in high school where a guy that I liked, whose last name, by the way, was Palacios, so he was not white himself, but everybody would make comments about how he looked like Freddie Prinze Jr. Hindsight's 2020. I looked back and I'm like, what the fuck were we talking about? He did not look like that. But anyway, He was somebody that I had in a few classes, and we got along really, really well. We were very flirtatious with each other. And I will never forget, he came up to me one day and he's like, I really like you, but I only date girls that are blonde with blue eyes. And I already had a bit of a complex at that point. That gave me even a further complex to know for certain now, without a shadow of a doubt, that I was being disqualified, not based on my personality, not based on my likability, but simply based on certain physical features that I will never have. And I couldn't try to have them either.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If I dyed my hair blonde, like a Britney Spears blonde or Christina Aguilera blonde, I would look like a fool. A lot of girls around me could do that. They could dye their hair blonde. They could assimilate a little bit. I felt like I was the complete opposite. And granted, you know, as far as the spectrum of color, I'm not even that dark, but to be darker than most of my counterparts felt very isolating. And so I would tell myself, fuck the colonizers. Embrace your African roots, embrace your indigenous roots, learn about where you come from and be proud of that, because you will want to know more in the future and you will embrace it in the future.
That's a good one. And I can even relate to that because, yeah, we grew up with the same mentality, even though we grew up in a Hispanic dominant city. Ironically, especially in the 90s, it was very much, you know, about like Americanizing everything about us. And I definitely leaned into that growing up for sure. There's so much to say, but I'm like, if we start on that stuff, that's a whole podcast in and of itself. So, another little big sis advice I would give my younger self, which again, former people pleaser to the core.
Yeah.
If a person does not like you, it does not have to be your problem.
That's a good one.
Oh my gosh. And granted, you know, my therapist and I, we've talked about stuff, and she's shown me how much a lot of those things came from trauma that I didn't even know were trauma or considered trauma, and that how it could have affected just the decisions I made growing up that are part of who I am today. But definitely growing up, it was like if someone didn't like me, I had to prove that whatever they thought about me was not true. I'm a good person. I'm a likable person. And if they didn't like me, then it was a direct statement saying then I'm not a likable person and I'm wrong in some way. So I had to prove no. Yeah. So for me, it was like I couldn't have someone not like me because then I was like, no, wait. Again, it was this blanket statement I was putting on myself as a person because someone didn't like me. And it took it took till my 30s really, till finally it was kind of like, I am who I am. People are who they are. We're all various colors and flavors. Not everyone's going to like each other. Personalities don't all mesh together, and that's okay. That's normal. That's human nature. But unfortunately, growing up, I would let it affect me emotionally very deeply if like someone didn't like me. And if I couldn't fix it, quote unquote, fix it, there was nothing to fix. If I couldn't fix it really would spiral me into not so good places mentally.
Question for you on that. Were there people that you encountered growing up where there was nothing necessarily wrong with the person, but you just didn't really care for them?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And that never clicked in your head?
Nope. Never.
Because I was thinking to myself, I was like, well, there are plenty of people I didn't want to be around, so I never took it personally the other way.
Well, especially because I would say I grew up very much with a radar for people where I couldn't explain and give facts. But if we all have, especially as women, when you just get an intuition about someone,
the vibe.
You get a vibe and you can't explain it. And 9 times out of 10, I would be proven correct. But even still, if they try to approach me, befriend me, I had this innate need to still be nice. So I would go against sometimes my own intuition because I couldn't be mean, or what I considered would be mean.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know boundaries.
For me, I will say that a lot of the intuition stuff of just like, I don't know what it is, I just don't like this person, that was usually a reflection on their character. There was something going on there. But I'm talking about the people who you're like, you are perfectly nice. We just don't click. You know what I mean? Like those people who I'm like, if I can feel that way about them and not really be like, yeah, there's no point to try to force this, because just because we're two good people doesn't mean that we're necessarily going to become besties. I think that also is kind of what taught me to be like, it's not personal. And then I also had so much fucking attitude back then. So much attitude, so much anger, that if somebody didn't like me, I was like, fuck you, bitch, I don't like you either.
Yeah, I was never that sassy, sadly. I wish.
I see the potential.
It's there. Oh, it's there. It's there. Yeah. When you get me riled up enough, it comes out. Rare occasions, but I know it's there. But I don't let it out as much as I should.
I agree with that. I would agree with that as an outside observer of your life. The next one for me is, it's a tough one. This is probably the hardest area for me. The one that people really tried to knock it into my head that it just bleh, you know, for those who are not watching, in one ear out the other, which is that your life begins when you decide it begins, not when you get into a relationship. Ooh. And I think becoming a Christian early on kind of really screwed me up on that, because at 17 it was like all about marriage already. And honestly, at 17, I shouldn't have been thinking about who the fuck I was going to marry. I should have been thinking about what am I going to do with the rest of my life? Like, who do I want to be? What do I want to do? How am I going to make money to live? I never in my young years asked myself about where I wanted to travel, what experiences I wanted to have. It was so all-consuming, and that partly was because of being a Christian, because as a woman and as a Christian, you need to find a husband. That is your main priority. Yep. So in a lot of women's minds, your life begins when you get into a relationship that is going to lead to marriage. Yep. And as I got older and that was not happening for me, I was like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I am about to be in my 30s and I feel like I have just been waiting and I haven't done anything of value with my life, because I think that my ministry, because I was still a Christian at this time, is going to be with my husband. Therefore, I cannot start that until I have my husband. It's so twisted.
I know.
It is so fucking twisted. And so when I started living for myself, I went back to school. I, looked for better quality jobs because they weren't just temporary anymore. And because I was like, there's no guarantee that I'm going to get snatched up. But the real clincher for me was watching other people that I cared about at that time just waste away waiting for a husband. It's one thing when you do it. You don't necessarily see it. It feels completely different when you watch somebody that you care about do it. You want to shake them and go, live your life. Like, why aren't you doing something with your life? You're just waiting around for a husband. What if they never come? You know what I mean? And then watching them sink deeper and deeper into compromising their standards. See, that's one thing for people who are still not super familiar with us, because we come on here and we talk a lot, but we sometimes get personal. One thing that I can say is that I've always had a fantastic example in Desiree of never compromising your standards. I have myself done that, and I have seen so many other women do that. And she has a fierceness. She could teach a course on not compromising what it is that you want. And I know she's heard throughout her lives, her standards are too high, blah, 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 all of this stuff. There's a difference between you having unrealistic standards and having high standards. And I think that that's the thing that we get confused sometimes, and why people think that we need to lower them because they think that they're unrealistic, when in actuality, they're not.
In actuality, they're just knowing your worth.
Knowing your worth.
Person, like as just a human being. And
keeping your peace too, because why am I going to let something that I know is not worthy of me into my life to rob me of my peace for what? So watching other people do it and fall down this very slippery slope of compromising not just your standards, but your morality, who you are as a person, and then being so happy for crumbs. It just saddened me. I was like, this is sad.
And I don't know if it was a stubbornness in me, but the idea of settling for crumbs and just living in that, it felt so sad that I was like,
it is.
I don't want that. I don't want to choose that.
And the fact that you knew that at such a young age.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Because mind you, the person I'm talking about is in their 30s.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's how it is. Like, the older you get, the more worried you get that you're never going to find anyone. The more that you compromise, the more that you settle for crumbs. And just watching her do that just made me, and this is pre me getting married or even meeting my husband. I was like, is that what I look like? Trust me, you were not missing out on anything but headache and heartache. Trust me. And I watched this person's self-esteem just crumble to the ground. And it's hard enough as a woman in this world to maintain any sort of self-esteem and self-confidence. Yeah. But then to allow a man that only gives you crumbs to take away what little you have left, it's the saddest thing to watch.
You know, also saddening and angering at the same time is that in addition to them doing that, thinking that, believing that, they also end up having loved ones in their own life tell them, because they don't see them settled, your standards are too high, when they probably have standards to the floor. But just because they're single, they almost perpetuate the behavior of them even going lower, because they're like, you just need to stop being picky. Just, any guy, did he pay for dinner? Perfect. That's it. Marry him. And it's like, but he's a psycho killer who sniffs feet.
This is why the bar is in hell. This is why the bar is set in hell, because we give each other bad advice. Don't listen to anyone who tells you things like that. Honestly, the saddest thing for me wasn't just watching this person, everything about who they are just crumble to the ground. It was watching them fight other people for their crumbs. It was watching them knowing that what they were getting was crumbs and defending that. That was the saddest part. And it's like a dog going back to its vomit. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was so... It was heartbreaking, but also angering and frustrating.
Yeah.
Because you want to slap the person and be like, love yourself more than this. But I will, to get back to my original point, there are things in life that I wish I would have experienced sooner. Things that I wish that I would have traveled more. I wish I would have, I wish I was a little bit taller. I wish I was taller. I wish I had a girl, the good I would call her. I wish I would have tried more hobbies and passions and things like that. Because again, I just didn't invest in myself, because I felt like I was in this standstill of
waiting for life to start.
When this person puts a ring on my finger, then I can start. And trust me, as somebody who did that and then got married, you will have deep regrets if you do that, especially if you marry somebody who did do that for themselves. Then you'll see all their accomplishments, how ambitious they are, all of their accolades, and it'll make you feel even more inadequate than how you felt on your own. So yeah, that's one.
In kind of connections with that, being able to tell my younger self to never change your appearance because of what someone told you, about your hair, your eyes, if you have to lose weight or not. I remember there was a guy, I was between 17 and 19. We had this weird on and off situation going on. You may clock in soon who that was. Man, they loved making passive aggressive, just joking comments about my hair being frizzy, the hairs on my arm that I then obsessively shaved for many years because I was shamed. And then I wouldn't let anyone touch me because I was terrified they would feel stubble. So I would avoid physical touch with people with my arm.
I want to shake him.
And then, the most asinine thing, We were literally sitting across from each other on a kitchen counter with a bunch of friends in the room. And out of nowhere, he reaches and he's like, "Why do your eyebrow hairs stick up like that?" And I was like, "What?
Girl,
What?"
That I had a
He
girl she was like a frenemy. She was somebody who was very insecure. Not a lot of people tolerated or liked her. I was friends with her. She lived in my complex where I lived and we went to school together. She'd be the one to be like, "You have a pimple right there." And I'm like, "Bitch, I know. I have a mirror."
Goodness.
That's the male equivalent of her.
Yeah, basically. And the hair thing,
The
he didn't just
audacity.
mention it. Before he mentioned it, he's sitting next to me. He starts trying to pluck at it. And I was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, you have so much like long hairs." And I was
Mind you, we could probably tear apart the way that this man looked.
yeah. Isn't it ironic? 9 times out of 10, it's usually men who can't talk themselves.
Just say it. The most busted ass men who want to have an opinion on how a woman looks.
Oh, so it's one of those things in vain to the self-esteem. I would try to really help my younger self be confident in who she is to the point that accepting that we're all beautiful in our own unique ways and that no matter what anyone comes and says, that does not get to change how I feel or think about myself to the point that obviously it leads to destructive, sad, negative behaviors and thought patterns that followed me for all my life. So, yeah, it's definitely one of those things like I almost wish I had your sass to the point that it's like that's that rebellion of going, "Oh, you want me to do that? Well, fuck that. I'm going to do the opposite on purpose." Kind of a deal. I wish I had that kind of attitude sometimes.
You know, what was weird is that when that guy said that to me in high school, it never occurred to me to try to go out and like dye my hair blonde or try to get contacts to make my eyes look blue. I was just like, "Well, I'm fucked." And I just moved on because what are you going to do? And
sadly, a friend of mine who we did grow up together, when a man told her the same thing, she did blonde her hair and get contacts to try, and it wasn't good enough for him.
Of course it wasn't.
Because it wasn't she couldn't magically make herself a white girl, a blonde white girl.
No. And as much as I had moments growing up where I was like, "God, I wish I'm white," because it just would be easier. I also had that rebellious streak, like you said, in me where I'm like, "Fuck that. I'm going to love who I am regardless." But I mean, it wasn't like I was the most confident person growing up either. I felt like an ugly duckling quite a lot growing up. And it wasn't until I became an adult that I started to feel differently about that. I wish that I could go back and tell my younger self, and this is going to sound very like generic, but I wish that I could tell them that they are enough. Ooh. And in the sense that there were a lot of things that I prevented myself from doing or trying because I was afraid to fail.
Yes.
I was afraid that I wasn't going to be good at it. And that goes not just with trying artistic pursuits, but even like trying to go to college and get a college degree or to go literally towards anything that I had an interest in. There's a lot of the times when I told myself I wasn't smart enough to be talking about a specific subject or to be going after a certain thing, or I wasn't pretty enough for that guy that could have been attracted to me, but you know, I just disqualified myself before anything even happened, and good enough to take up space in the world and to let my voice be heard and be known. Because I've always been a very outspoken person, but believe it or not, I've held myself back. And as I've gotten older, and I think it's partly because I was told a lot that I was intimidating, and I was told a lot that I had a resting bitch face. And so even all the way back in high school before resting bitch face was even a thing. So I think that I also held myself back because I wanted to appear a certain way, or I didn't want to come off as being problematic because people already thought that I looked problematic, and being overly opinionated or standing up for something would have only heightened that. I'll never forget a specific instance of that where I like really shut myself down. I was in high school. I was a Christian at the time, and I had started a prayer group or something at my school. We would just have weekly meetings, and then we would go about our way. Well, one day after our meeting, I was the president. I don't know how the fuck I became the president, but I was. One day after school, I saw that the people from my group were having a conversation with the people from the LGBT ally group. And I was like, this is not good. So I went in and I kind of like got in between and I was like, what's going on? Is everything okay? Like, kind of thing. And both sides were like, we're fine. We're just having a healthy discussion. And I'm just a kid at this time. I'm not even 18 years old. And I'm just kind of like, maybe this should not be happening. And they all took accountability of like, we are grown enough to be having this conversation. I said, okay. And I left. What the fuck else was I going to do? I didn't know that I had to stay there and mediate. The next day I got called into the principal's office, and the principal, she was in the wrong for this. But she tore me a fucking new one. She yelled at me.
What?
Yeah, she yelled at me saying that I was discriminating, that I was doing this and that. Mind you, I wasn't even part of this conversation. And I will say this, after she tore me a new one, and I was so shocked that an adult was speaking to me that way that I almost was on the verge of tears, let alone not even capable of defending myself at that time. The LGBT group that had gone to the principal in the first place, I don't know to this day what was even said that prompted them to go to the principal, but I was a little pissed because I was like, you all said that you could handle this conversation, that it was fine. I tried to break it up, and then I walked away because y'all are your own people. I can't force you to walk away. And something obviously was said that upset them. So after she tore me a new one, they were like, oh, it's not her. She wasn't the one, kind of thing. Which I would have been like, that would have been helpful if you would have said that before she started berating me.
Yeah.
And then literally within that week, the school newspaper had written a whole article about it, just destroying us. And it was the one and only time where I was like, oh, I actually feel persecuted as a Christian, because I didn't do anything in that situation. And the assumption is that we were trying to discriminate. I wish that I would have defended myself to the principal. I was terrified, obviously.
Of course.
Because I was like, you should not be screaming at a child. Like, I am a literal child. It is not okay that you don't know how to control and regulate your own emotions and speak to me as an adult should speak to a child. And tell her what the story was and what happened. Because the thing is when I came into that office, she wanted me to explain my side of the story, but before I could even do that, she just went right into yelling at me. Like, it was clear that she was not in control of her emotions.
Yeah. She got triggered and took it out on a child.
Real triggered. The thing that really warped my perception at that time was that the group thought this was great. They thought that it was great that they stood up for their faith and all of this stuff. Meanwhile, I'm just like, this is awful. Like, this is not a win in my opinion. And they thought I was just the greatest leader, and I was like, please do not give me credit for this shit. Like, I am not in this. So stuff like that, where I didn't use my voice, I didn't stick up for myself, I didn't take up space, I didn't demand respect. And that really stemmed from what I had originally said.
One thing I would like to advise my younger self, which has become more popular now, the whole concept of like, no is a complete sentence kind of a deal. So really understanding that you are in your full right to say no to absolutely anything that you don't feel good, comfortable, or okay with doing. Be it relationships, be it going out with friends, be it kissing a guy. I sadly remember, so it wasn't that I didn't say no, but there was that I didn't enforce it with enough conviction because of like the whole fear of being young and the whole idea that like, is it okay to say no sometimes? So there was a guy.
But you did say no.
I did say no. I So yeah, I mean, what was done was absolutely
No, it's
not
a
okay.
complete sentence.
No, it's a complete sentence. Exactly.
Exactly. Doesn't matter what
But
tone
back
you
then,
have behind it.
but
Yeah.
back then, that's my point. That I
Yeah.
felt like it wasn't strong enough. It wasn't convicted enough when it should have been plenty.
Yeah.
My action, which I'll explain with the no, was clear enough. But I almost questioned it when I was younger. And again, like spiraling into playing it over and over and seeing if I did something wrong. So there was a kid in school that I think it was like summer. I think we finished junior year. We were in summer before senior year. And I lived in a complex that had this huge like back area that was easily to walk to a park. The street was there. Across the street were restaurants and whatever. And so him and his friend were in a car driving by. I was commonly walking that area because I had friends who lived also across the street in certain complexes, and I commonly walked back and forth from her home. And so he saw me, he stopped. His friend dropped him off there to talk to me. He walked me to my house because, again, my house was literally right after the big field. And we were just chatting. Obviously, there was some flirtation, more on his end. If anything, I was weirded out because this kid never, and we had been in school together. We had a couple classes together. He never once ever showed interest. He barely talked to me. So I was more weirded out, if anything, by this interaction because I was like, where did this come from? When did you suddenly have an attraction towards me? Because you're clearly flirting, and I'm weirded out because I don't get where it's coming from. But I'm being nice. I'm talking back, but I'm still like the whole time going, huh? And so we get to my door, and my door had this like fence that if you're standing literally at the door, you're kind of covered from the street. So someone would have to physically walk by my front door to not be hidden from the fencing. So I'm trying to say goodbye. And pretty much he slowly backs me into the fence and tries to kiss me. And I'm just like pulling away. At first, I just pulled away and he keeps pushing me closer to the fence and trying to kiss me. So then finally I'm like, no,
So gross.
no. And I think at the moment I was just more in shock. So that's why maybe my no wasn't aggressive sounding, which didn't need to be. But I'm saying at the time, I think I was just in such confusion and shock.
Yeah.
And then even more so being that I clearly don't want to kiss you.
Yeah, why are you away was enough. Like
exactly. So he kept forcibly trying to really where I couldn't even get out from under him because I was so backed into the fence. And every time I moved my head and was like, no, he kept trying. And then finally, I think I pushed him enough. And I was like, no. And then he just got an attitude and left. I never saw the kid again.
What a little shitheel.
I remember just being so shaky and scared. I went inside. I was home alone. I locked the door. I was desperately hoping one of my guy best friends at the time would come over because they did frequently. I was like, this would be the time I would really like you to come over. Kind of a deal.
How old were you?
I was 16, 17.
Yeah, that's harassment. That's assault. You don't force yourself onto someone repeatedly who is trying to get away from you.
Sadly, that was not the first time that happened. But anyways, my point is that I would want to educate my younger self to understand how, no is a complete sentence. Once is enough. You don't have to justify it. You don't have to, be nice about it. If you don't want to do something, no is no, period.
Yeah. But I mean, it's understandable because as a woman, we have seen violence be enacted against women just for simply rejecting a man. And so it is a terrifying prospect. You don't know who you're dealing with. Yeah. And if they're already feeling bold enough to back you into a corner and to repeatedly try to do something that you clearly don't want to happen, you have no idea how that could potentially escalate.
And I think you're two teenagers. So I think in your mind, you almost don't see it as like if it was an adult, you'd be like clear assault bad, but you're like, oh, this is a stupid boy trying to kiss me, and so you almost dumb it down the scenario when it's actually more
you
serious.
Almost give them
that.
a free pass being
Absolutely.
but no, those free passes are how you end up with guys who commit rape.
Exactly.
You know, because they get this idea in their head that they are allowed to force themselves onto girls, and they usually try to do that at a young age like that too. Like those are the first little hints and seeds of worse behavior down the line. You actually just triggered the one that I was thinking of earlier, which is that I wish that I could go back and tell my younger self, and this has nothing to do with my behavior and has everything to do with just information and knowledge that was not accessible to me at that time. But I wish I could go back and tell myself about patterns of abuse and tell myself what things like gaslighting and manipulation look like. And not just in romantic relationships, but also just within relationships, period. And even within religion. Oh my God, the things I could have saved myself from if I had just known. Very simply, because one of the things that can get twisted within Christianity is manipulation. That word is used in a very different context than in, like, let's say, psychology. And a lot of the times, if you are in an unhealthy church environment, which is where we found ourselves in several times, in several different places, then you have manipulation going on in some shape or form, whether that's committing acts of sin and then hiding them from the general population of the congregation, or justifying them in some type of way, projecting. There was a lot of projection that took place in our first church, especially with the pastor's wife. She thought that every woman that was in that church was a Jezebel. And Jezebel, for those who don't know, the character in the Bible is known for being a manipulative woman who, yes, she used her sexuality to get what she wanted, but her manipulation tactics were not just strictly about her body. She was intelligent enough to be able to manipulate with her words too. But this church treated Jezebel as if she was a harlot. And so any sign of sexuality of any kind, up into, you know, the length of your skirt, whether your shirt completely covered your back when you sat down, shit like that, that was the focus. Meanwhile, this woman was the biggest Jezebel because she was behind the scenes doing such awful things and manipulating people to do awful things for her. And it had nothing to do with sexuality.
No.
Because, we'll be honest, the woman was a beast. But the point is, she was projecting the things that she was doing onto other women who weren't doing any of those things. So it's stuff like that. And then there was also manipulation and gaslighting that I dealt with in relationships, specifically one romantic relationship, well, several romantic relationships, but one was very severe to the point of being like emotional abuse. Those types of things I really was ignorant of. I had no clue what was happening to me, and honestly it just made me feel crazy. It just made me feel like, am I making this up? Which is exactly the goal of gaslighting, to make you doubt yourself, to make you feel like you're the problem, that you're just making something out of nothing, when really, you know, what you're asking for is accountability and change of behavior. It's not a huge ask, but this person obviously doesn't want to do it. And so the way that they get around it is by saying, you're making too big of a deal. This is not what this is. See, I can't even do this because you make a, you know what I mean? Like just putting it back on you as if you're the problem. And that was something that I had no grid for. There was never a point in my life where anybody bothered to teach me what potential abuse could look like. And mind you, there had been physical and emotional abuse in my family. So you would think that somebody would set me aside at some point and tell me like what they had been through, the warning signs, things of that nature. But the problem within a lot of families, especially Hispanic families, is that they don't communicate trauma ever.
No, at all.
It's something to handle privately. It's not something to talk about. You know what I mean? It's a dirty little secret.
Yeah.
A lot of the times.
Well, naively, sadly, there's like two parts to it. One, they
Mm-hmm.
think by not telling you, they're protecting you from experiencing it in any way. And two,
Yeah.
they don't want their own shame, doesn't want you looking at them differently. This figure of maternal, usually it's a mother, this maternal figure that you look up to, that you listen to, in their mind, maybe that they'll be lesser than in your eyes
Oh,
if they
okay. Yeah.
share, if they
Yeah.
share these experiences. I know that that's kind of some of the motivation. My mother kept a lot of things from me growing up. She really thought she was protecting me in some way, in some
Yeah.
like guided way. But yeah.
It's the innocence, because, and I get it, it's like you feel like you're gonna protect this child's innocence from
Mm-hmm.
not knowing how bad the world could be
Mm-hmm.
and how terrible people can be. But the fact of the matter is that your child could encounter people like this in their life and not be able to recognize them. Just because you don't tell them what you've been through doesn't mean
Mm-hmm.
that you're creating a hedge around them where no one that has evil intent or bad intent will come near them.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it actually has the opposite effect. But I get it, because I get the same way with my nephews.
Mm-hmm.
Because they are men of color and because of the world we live in, I don't want them to go into the world thinking that they are not good enough or
Mm-hmm.
disliked, automatically disliked because of the color of their skin, because that's not always the case. But I don't want them to be naive about the
Mm-hmm.
possibility that somebody could judge them based on the color of their skin, or if they get pulled over by a police officer, how to comport themselves to keep them alive.
Mm-hmm.
That's a hard,
That's a heavy subject to sit down with a young
right?
person. And yeah.
And a lot of the times, if you don't know how to navigate those conversations, people just decide not to have them
Yeah.
because they don't know how to do it. They don't know how to do it
Exactly.
properly.
Exactly. Whew. One of my last ones, I would say, huge, honestly, that I would really try to like drill into young little Desiree's life is teaching her to just live in the damn present moment. And this
Mm-hmm.
connects a lot to even something you said earlier. I can say that I have lived majority of my life waiting for something, and then life will start. Waiting for the significant other who I'm going to marry, and then life will
Mm-hmm.
start. Waiting to lose weight so that society deems me worthy, and then life will start. To be healthier, to be this, because I also have chronic illness and pains and things that I grew up with. Waiting for when I finally start making money with my passions, then I can start living. It's I lived so long not really enjoying moments for what they were, certain years of my life. Like, I feel like I
Mm-hmm.
not just wasted my 20s because of mostly religious trauma, but also I feel like I didn't at all just enjoy any aspects of it, because I always felt like I was waiting for something to begin, waiting for something to start. And so every moment I was constantly waiting to be happy. So I feel like there are some opportunities in
Mm-hmm.
life that I wish I would have really like let myself sink my teeth into and
Mm-hmm.
just stand and take it in, because they were good moments.
Yeah.
Some were epic, some were great opportunities, things that I just didn't really allow myself to enjoy. And then
Mm-hmm.
time, as we know now that we've gotten older, it's literally gone in the blink of an eye. Like,
Yeah. Damn.
it's scary how fast time flies. I, again, still in denial. I'm 41 years old.
We're in midlife.
Yes, that's disturbing for me sometimes to wrap my head around still.
Yeah.
And I'm working through it with my therapist, but but it's those things that, like, I feel like I waited so long,
Yeah.
and here I am at 41, and I wish I would have just enjoyed my youth more, even
Mm-hmm.
through the hardships, even through the uncertainties, even through, yes, waiting for certain things to happen. I still wish I would have let myself, or I taught myself to just taking the moments of today and this moment. People in my life that I've lost, I wish I took more time to really nourish the moments in those relationships as well. There's just, the whole appreciate what's happening now rather than constantly waiting and focusing on the future.
I will second that as my last piece of advice to my younger self, because I think it's an ongoing issue, being present. And I think that disassociating is something that as we grow, we get very used to it as a coping mechanism. Sometimes life gets really difficult, and the only way that you can survive it is by disassociating from life. But the problem is that you get so good at it, you don't even realize you're doing it. And then you're doing it even in the moments that are good.
Yeah.
Because for me, and I'm sure you can relate to this as well, the opposite end of the spectrum of waiting is waiting for the shoe to drop, waiting for something bad that is on the horizon. When you are having good moments, not being able to just live and exist in that moment because you're afraid of something that's going to come and rob it from you. Somehow, this is too good, it's going to go wrong in some type of way. And it holds you back from, even like what I said earlier, taking chances on things, taking risks on things, because you're worried, like, if I allow myself to grab a hold of this and to be this happy and then it gets taken away, I'll be more destroyed than if I never had it to begin with. It's that whole better to have loved than lost and never to have loved at all. You're like, yeah, right. Try loving and then losing it, bitch.
Exactly.
But it does hold you back. And I feel like when you're more present in the moment and you're not worried about what could potentially happen in the future, or you're not worried about what happened in the past, and you're just living in that exact minute, you're able to enjoy it in a different way. And I never learned how to do that. And then it gets harder when you get older, because now we have phones. Now we have social media, and we're so overstimulated that we don't know how to be in the moment because we're doing 20 million different things in one moment. And oftentimes, even in my own marriage, we have to remind each other, like, can you be off the phone and just be with me? Like, just be with me in this moment. Or my husband has a habit of always forward thinking, next thing. And I have finally gotten to a place in my life where I'm not always thinking about the future, because I desperately want to be in this moment, because I know how short life is.
That's the thing. Yeah. I mean, tomorrow, literally, as cheesy and cliche as the phrase is, tomorrow's not promised to anyone, literally. And I've seen enough people close to my life go, some unexpectedly. I don't know why I think I'm exempt from that sometimes, but we're not. And so am I going to really just spend the rest of my days, however long they are, waiting to be happy, waiting for life to get good, when there are little moments every day that can be appreciated and enjoyed?
Yeah, like a good cup of coffee. But it's so funny too, because going back to what I was saying about Nick, if I present a problem to him of some kind, or if let's say I'm just talking about what's happening in the world, he's automatically thinking of a plan 3 steps ahead. And I'm like, okay, let's just come back to the present moment. We don't gotta jump to something, like go into panic mode or jump into something and
there's fix it.
There's all sorts of ways to not be present in the moment. And don't get me wrong, I do think that because death is such an unknown thing, and it's something that we all experience, it's something that we'll all go through. We know that our time is fleeting, and as you get older, you just become more and more aware of it. There does have to be a little bit of disassociation for you to be able to function in life.
Especially you.
Because if you're constantly thinking about what you would just be paralyzed with fear all the time.
Absolutely.
So there is a little bit of that. But at the same time, I do think that there's a sense of gratitude and also that feeling of enjoyment, of pleasure, of this moment right now that I have, and taking advantage of as many of those as you can, knowing that, yes, life ebbs and flows. There will be hard times, but not every moment is hard. There can be some levity, even in difficult seasons. There can be moments, small things. And we've talked about this in previous episodes before, of like taking advantage of the small pleasures in life and what you have access to and what's available to you. And you can't do that if you're not present. If you're constantly either thinking of the past or worrying about the future and not being here right now, because you know, this is going to be a memory soon. It's going to be something that we think back on with nostalgia and reminisce. And I know that I felt that way about a lot of my childhood memories, and I don't know for certain that I really enjoyed all of them.
Yeah, same.
You know?
Well, friends, let us know maybe some advice, big sis, big brother advice you would give your younger self. What are things that now that you're older, looking back, you're going, you know, I wish someone, me, myself, because like Heather said, I feel like other people telling us we wouldn't pay attention. But if like literally our future self showed up, told us that they were our future selves, and sat us down and went, look, I know what happened. So pay attention. I got some advice.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, what would that be? What are some things you think you would say? Share it with us. Share it on social media. Where can they do that, Heather?
Okay, we're doing a little role reversal.
Yeah,
today.
I know.
Like well, I'm gonna do in the spirit of Desiree. Well, friends, if you could give us a like on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube, on Spotify, or any platform that you listen to the podcast. Oh God,
podcast.
The Boston came out of me. I am from Massachusetts, so but if you could if you could like and subscribe to any of our channels, please give us a follow. Please leave a review for us. Please, 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 on any of the podcast platforms. We really could use it, but also it really helps us with the algorithm so that other people can find us who may like our content. We want to get it out there as much as possible and continue to meet all of you. It's been really fun interacting with you guys, especially on TikTok. We respond to almost every comment, and if we don't respond to it, we at least like it, and we will continue to do that. It's been fun hearing your opinions about different things, and we want to continue to see that happen. So until next time, friends, bye.